Introducing today's program is Bill Hull.
Good afternoon. Just getting a couple things together. And I'm Bill Hall. It's my extreme pleasure this afternoon to bring a guest who has deep roots in our home area. Heidi Siefkas is originally from the La Crosse area, Galesville, actually. In fact, we just traded stories of I had a friend who wound up being one of her teachers in Galesville. She is now living in Nashville. Her father, Jim, was a professor at UW La Crosse for 42 years, I think, head of the speech and theater department there. Some of you older people than I, or me too, may have known him. I knew the name the minute I heard her name. I thought, Jim Siefkas. She's written a whole bunch of books. She will tell you about them. One of the latest, I believe, is Look Up, which is a great philosophical statement as well. You can share photos on social media that show what you get out of this meeting or what you remember for it. At the end of her presentation, we're inviting up a panel to also answer some questions and reflect on it. Tom Thibodeau, Amy Becker from Amplify. I don't introduce Tom because everybody knows where Tom's from. Tom's from a good place. And Mariah Forrester Olson, who is a childhood cancer nonprofit consultant and author. So without further ado, please welcome Heidi Siefkas.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be back in the Cooley region. I grew up in the GET school district. I'm an alumna there as well as UW-Madison. Go Bucky. And I'm going to my first Green Bay Packer game on Monday at Lambeau. Before I start with the 5 leadership habits and practices that I prepared for you, I'd like to debunk a common myth about great leaders, that they are stoic, unwavering, and they never fail. Because that's a very old way of thinking, very passé. Resilient leadership isn't about being unshakable, but steadying yourself, your team, and your family with the shake. Because life shakes all of us. I know this to be true more than one time over. And I know I'm not alone. For a little bit of context, I'm going to talk about the last 3 years. The last 3 years, I wrote a book called Look Up, Global Stories of Resilience, during which I interviewed 30 individuals who had overcame tremendous adversity, everything from severe illness to grief, immigration, and war. Regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, there was a common through line, and there was 2 things: that they leaned into the power of perspective, and they found strength in their community. These habits that I've curated for you, I took from 3 sources. The research I did in writing that book, my own resilience journey, and then time in corporate America, as well as leading international tours for adults over 10 years. So let me at least take you back until the point where life shook me to a standstill. I was in my early 30s. I seemingly had it all: career, marriage, home, supportive group of friends and family. Then, on a normal fall day, I took out the trash. On my way to the dumpster, a 1,000-pound tree limb from 30 feet in the air struck me, leaving me unconscious. There's the tree limb, and that's where I woke up 5 days later with a broken neck and no recollection of what had transpired. I went underneath neurosurgery, a lengthy recovery, which was in an immobilization brace. I nicknamed it my cage because it was part protector and part prison. Now, over that lengthy recovery, I also discovered things about life that weren't necessarily what was playing in my reality. I found out that my husband was unfaithful. Also, that high-power career forced me to resign. So, in one fell swoop, I lost everything I held dear. That was restart number one. So, press fast forward a couple years, I had rebuilt, architected a new life. I had penned 3 books, I had become a TEDx speaker, and I had found love again. I found love again by going on a helicopter flight lesson with a friend. And the helicopter flight lesson instructor was none other than Brian Treptow, my life partner. We moved to Hawaii, and everything was perfect. Actually, this is the first time that I've spoken about Brian Treptow. In December 2022, in trying to save someone else's life, Brian crashed into the Pacific and passed away, dropping me to my knees. Restart number 2. Press fast forward to today. I moved from Hawaii to Nashville, and Nashville has proven to be a win-win. The creative mecca that I needed to jumpstart that book again after Brian's passing and finish it with more gusto than I started it with, as well as continue to heal. For those that are living with grief, you know what I mean. So these 5 habits I'm sharing with you today are not theories. They are life tested. And they are for you, leading yourself through challenging, uncertain times, your families, your congregations, your leadership in business. The first one that I'm going to hone in on is what was the common theme in everybody's story in the Look Up book, that they leaned into the power of perspective, and I certainly leaned in that as well. In the most challenging times, this is the only thing that we can control. And I distilled this into a mantra called Look Up. And this mindfulness practice, as well as life tool, is something that you can take with you anywhere, that you can grasp 2 elements that you have control over. And that's being in the moment, actually appreciating the beauty around you as well as hazards, and then finding the upside in whatever situation that you are in, because every hurdle, hiccup, or wound eventually turns into wisdom. Now, looking up for resilient leaders is about taking a pause and stepping back so that you can tap into that perspective, so that you can look at a burned out individual or a business crisis with a little bit more clarity. Resilient leaders don't necessarily react in the moment unless they're working in an ER or they are serving for our military. They typically pause, zoom out, and get a better vantage point as to what's going on and maybe something that needs attention. But if you don't tap into the power of perspective or use lookup, it doesn't work. So for every one of these habits, I'm going to challenge you to do something today, hopefully later this afternoon. And it is to set up in that pocket DJ, your lifeline, that cell phone of yours, a calendar reminder to take 12 minutes to look up. Step away from your screens, plural. Get out of that environment that you're working or working from home or family that you're trying to manage. Get out of that environment and be in the moment. In time, then ask yourself, what's going right? What needs adjusting? And be grateful for where you are. Now you may be thinking, why 12 minutes? Did she just pick out of a hat 12 minutes? I'm a lifelong learner. And there is scientific evidence that says that 12 minutes 4 times a week is the benchmark for mental health. But the more that you practice mindfulness, the better you'll get at it. So I'm challenging you to do it every day, not just 4, all 7. Now, this is only half of the time that we are supposed to be exercising our bodies. It's been scientifically proven that 150 to 300 minutes is what we need to do to exercise. By the way, if you want to know more from soup to nuts about the scientific evidence behind this 12 minutes, there's a great book called Peak Mind, and it is written by Amishi Jha. So speaking about exercise, let's move on to the second habit of resilient leaders, and that's that they exercise their restart reflex, and they welcome Plan B. So just like in the gym, you need to increase reps to advance from your plateau. Your resilience muscle is the same, and the power of the human brain is a marvel. The neuroplasticity and the ability for the brain to learn new thought pathways, movement pathways, is a life tool and a leadership tool. I have a lot of experience in Plan Bs from leading over 100 tours to Cuba. For groups anywhere from 20 to 40 adults, we experienced a myriad of challenges. Hurricanes, sporadic road closures, and plumbing fiascos at our 4-star hotels. But as any good leader, I set expectations from the first moment I met them. I would say, we need to be flexible. Plan B is probably better than Plan A ever could have been. And as long as we don't get to Plan Z, we're okay. So in business, these Plan Bs look like project pivots, team reorgs, or campaign shifts. Think of them like in sailing terms, that when the wind changes, you adjust your sails. Well, you need to do that in your life, your home, as well as in business. The tip for you on this is something that I did after every tour to Cuba. What worked? What didn't work? Try doing this with your campaigns at work, after a family vacation, or even your next party. What would you do differently the next time around? The third habit that I like to call our currency is authenticity, because in this day and age, it is not only rare, but it's also powerful. And with AI and the digital noise, the only way that we're going to win collectively is becoming more authentic. And the only thing that screams authenticity better than a hug with a good friend, who I call family, is a picture of a child. They are so authentic, no filters. They make friends just out of proximity and being on the swing set. Then we as adults, we like multiple layers of filters. Societal filters, work filters, marriage filters. Where does it end? But it makes it harder for us to make friends. It also makes us harder to act as our authentic selves. So I asked a lot of you today how you felt. I got a lot of responses. I asked for one word response, and it kind of leveled the playing field. You told me how you were feeling about today, whether you were proud, that you were excited. I got a couple of those. Some said stressed and overwhelmed, but it kind of got me at the point that I understood the temperature of the room. And so this is one tip that you could do in your next team meeting. Instead of asking for a dissertation, just ask for one word how you feel about the project or how you feel about the day. What I found that was so interesting, when I became vulnerable, sharing my when all balls drop moment with the tree, the divorce, and the career loss, people came out of the woodwork. Me being vulnerable gave them permission to be vulnerable, and that is something resilient leaders need to do, because that's when the real conversations start. So I encourage you to be your authentic selves, showcase a little bit more vulnerability, and it'll pay you back 2, 3, 4, 5-fold. The fourth habit of resilient leadership that I want to stress is plan B on steroids, okay? As leaders or just individuals, we're going to encounter a time where everything just changes. And you want everything to go back to that former normal, but it's impossible to go back to that. And as leaders in this uncertain change that we're going into, with AI taking jobs, uncertainty in politics, the economy, this is essential to not always want to press rewind to the former normal, but welcome what's coming up next and the new normal. It is very difficult because we are programmed to not like change, but the only certainty we have is change. I think we, as a collective society or a world, we went through this with the pandemic, and probably not just one new normal, but two. But what was the thing that got us through the pandemic was Darwin's law, adaptability. Not necessarily strength of the nation, the vaccine, it was adaptability. And that is the case for people, societies, organizations, non-for-profits, congregations, soup to nuts. So just like I advised after every slight shift or detour that you have a meeting, this is for those we're going to head in a different direction. I personally just went through a merger and acquisition, and I can tell you that doing a bouncing forward session was about a couple-week meeting because we had a different team, we had different leaderships, and we had different products. So the fourth is about bouncing forward and evolving. The last is my absolute favorite because it typically floors some people that I would say that a leadership strategy is adventure, but it's my favorite life hack. Some people think that adventure means climbing Mount Everest or maybe jumping out of a perfectly good plane. It can be, but let's just define it as something that we can agree upon, an activity that is all-consuming. It puts you in the zone. It can be physical, emotional, or mental, or a combination of all three, but it puts you on that one-track mind. You're not thinking about what you're doing at the grocery store, what you're doing later this afternoon with your team meeting. You are fully present, and that presence is what gives you three benefits: enhanced clarity, increased energy, and the ability to tap into the power of perspective faster and better for when the you-know-what hits the fan. So one of my favorite adventures is what is pictured up here, the Kumano Kodo Trail in Japan, and it challenged me culturally, language, culinary, physically, emotionally, mentally. And I came back with the clarity to pivot in my life, not only personally, but also professionally. Now, I'm not saying you have to travel to Japan, but think about it in more simple terms so that you could actually accept this challenge. Take your team for a hike. Embrace a new AI tool. Publicly speak. Maybe even sing karaoke when you want to hide in the back. Do this and see how it changes your leadership. Because leaders that embrace the unknown, the leaders that adventure, lead better. I'm challenging you to do this sometime this month. Evaluate the way it makes you feel. You may actually think that you can conquer more than you thought previously. And then don't repeat that same adventure. Choose something else. I would kind of aspire for quarterly, but if you can up that, you're going to reap more benefits every month. So what I have done is I have created a kind of resilience toolkit here for you with those 5 things. Look up, embrace plan B, be authentic, welcome new normal, and adventure. I told you that I created the book by interviewing people who are real life sheroes and heroes. And we have 3 of the 5 Cooley region participants in the book here today. And I would love to have you give them a warm welcome as they take the 3 chairs up here. Tom Thibodeau, Mariah Forrester Olson, and Amy Becker, please come up here. We're going to tap their experience on resilient leadership, as well as how participating in the book impacted them. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A for any questions for all 4 of us. Mariah Forrester Olson is a childhood cancer survivor, advocate, non-for-profit volunteer, and author of Hope Over Despair. She uses her experience with neuroblastoma and its lasting effects to inspire hope and drive positive change in the childhood cancer community. I will ask her to go first. There you are.
So I was diagnosed with neuroblastoma in 1980 at the age of 1. Neuroblastoma is one of the 16 types of childhood cancer, and a massive tumor had taken over my right side of my chest. It wrapped around my heart and was pushing against my lung and trachea, making it difficult to breathe. I faced 18 rounds of radiation, multiple surgeries, and 2 years of an experimental chemotherapy protocol with only a slim chance of survival. Against all odds, I was declared cancer-free at the age of 8, but survival came with lifelong challenges. Over 100 late effects, including kidney disease, lung damage, spinal issues, and 52 surgeries. I walk with a cane, use a wheelchair for long distances, and live with constant, excruciating pain. Yet I choose purpose and embrace the power of perspective and Heidi's Look Up mantra. I have learned that life's hardest moments can bring the greatest wisdom. We all face pain and challenges, but what truly matters is how we respond. We can let hardship define us, or we can use it to grow and learn. As a young childhood cancer survivor, my parents taught me about Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking when I was a child. That hope, optimism, positivity, and faith can help us overcome life's difficulties. You can't always change what happens to you, but you can change how you think and how you respond. Seeing the silver lining, such as a smile or a kind word, even in darkness, can inspire you to look up and keep moving forward in both your personal and your professional lives. Today, I devote my life to advocacy, awareness, and improving survivorship in the childhood cancer community, leading novel programs, supporting families, and spreading hope. Being part of Heidi's book, Look Up Global Stories of Resilience, has helped me raise awareness for childhood cancer and for survivorship, as well as increase awareness for my newly published memoir, Hope Over Despair, Childhood Cancer and the Lifelong Journey of Survivorship, which details my cancer story, my medical issues, and my perspectives and what I have learned from everything. A portion of the royalties from the book do go to the Neuroblastoma Children's Cancer Society, which is one of the 10 nonprofits that I work closely with. To find out more, you can visit my website, www.hopeoverdespair.com. Both my book and Heidi's book highlight my love of music, which still brings me joy, healing, and perspective. Furthermore, guided by faith, knowledge, humor, my inner circle, and giving back, I am reminded daily of the power of hope and positivity, and to always look up.
Thank you, Mariah. A real life shero right there. Amy Becker is a nurse and senior improvement advisor at Amplify Health in La Crosse. And when she's not helping teams improve healthcare, you'll probably find her running, training for a triathlon, or spending time with her family and friends. The floor is yours, Amy.
Usually people don't give me a microphone. Yeah, so there's an inside joke with that, but I have some notes, but I kind of just want to go from the heart here. So great job, Mariah. I've known her since she was little too, and Heidi and I have been friends since junior high. So it's kind of remarkable. Our friendship group, we still hang out from high school, and there's probably how many of us, Annie? 10, 12? It's still a thing. It's kind of unheard of. Unfortunately, our group has had a lot of tragedies, and so we really lean on each other and have a great support system. So thank you, Heidi, for having me here. I contemplated Heidi telling our story because I was worried it would bring up some hard feelings. I was worried it was going to cause more trauma to my youngest daughter, Claire, and to my husband, Marty. But that wasn't the case at all. I have my original copy at the table, autographed, of course, and I still haven't read it all. And I still have only been able to skim the section about our family. So 3 years ago, we lost our daughter, Sydney Marie, to suicide. And when they say you never knew it was coming, you really don't. I'm a lot of fun too. And she was that times 10. And Heidi and Annie, my friend, have held her when she was a baby. And just so much beautiful energy. And I'm shaking a little bit, I'm sorry. I actually love public speaking, I teach all the time. But when it comes to Sydney, my heart rate gets so high and I tend to shake, and you change, right? Yeah, no, I'm good, but the other night though, the fireplace turned on all by itself, so I was like, thanks girl, hey, I see you. And I feel her around. It's been hell for 3 years. I do tell her story when I teach because I know she wants me to. I teach a lot about national patient safety goals, and one of those is suicide prevention. And she often comes through when I educate, because often in healthcare, we look at patients as body parts, as procedures, unintentionally, as a fracture on the ortho unit, when really we need to look at We have a patient here, Amy Becker, who happens to have a fracture, but she's got a full mind and body and soul. And we need to do better in healthcare addressing that. You might be that one person that person says, I'm not doing all right. Another thing that I've learned through Sydney's passing is I look at every one of you in this room and everyone on the street and people I line up at a race with, and I look at every one of you and I say, every one of you has something that's on your shoulder that's hurting. Just gonna put those notes down because I'm not gonna use them. Let me see it. Every one of you has something that hurts. And certain things on the news or certain stories or certain words, certain books can bring that out. And you can be fine in one moment and then you are a hot mess. And there have been times where I just have to leave a meeting. I hear the word suicide everywhere on TV. You are more in tuned to those things when you see people do gestures like this, or you're more in tuned. So I also pay attention to how I talk to everyone everywhere, because I could possibly hurt you and not even realize that. So that's what Sydney is teaching me. And I don't ever want to say she's in a better place. I want my daughter here right now with me. And I'm not anywhere near, the silver lining is this. But if she can teach us to be better and kinder, we can't lose. And when I teach, keep your title at the door. We are human beings first. I also teach that. And then we are whoever we are. Who cares if I'm a nurse for 23 years? That's cute. But at the end of the day, I'm just a human being and a mother and somebody that cares for other human beings. And we can't lose that. It's not that hard. So I could go on and on and on, but my message is to hold each other close. And I also teach this to a lot of our new nurses too. And some argue with me that I'm wrong on this, and I will challenge you. Take care of yourself first. Then your family, coworkers, what have you. Then the patient wins. Some will argue that the patient's always first. I challenge that. If you take care of yourself and each other, nobody else loses. Think about that for a minute. Be vulnerable, but be safe. Sometimes I come to work and say, it's not going to happen today, or I can't teach. I tried. Okay, so I'm almost done. This is why you don't give me the microphone. And I don't do karaoke because it's never good, especially in Nashville, by the way. I'm just going to mention that. But purpose. This is what's so great about Heidi's book. I had no idea what my purpose was when I lost Sydney. I was a manager in a pediatric department. I left, I went home, and I said a lot of swear words, like the F life. I'm not doing it. And I thought I would just stay home. And there were many, many, many nights I could understand how Sydney felt because I was leaving. And the fear and the anxiety that lives with you when you have another daughter. And you pray every day that she's okay. I'm going to go drive all the way to Missouri tomorrow to watch her run because she runs for Duluth and she's really fast and she's really cute. But you worry. The worry and anxiety is something very new and gross. So getting to see a good counselor and taking care of my health is how I can serve others better.
Thank you, Amy.
I know it's probably good to cut me off.
She showcased authenticity and vulnerability perfectly. You're amazing. So Tom Thibodeau is a proud husband, father, grandfather, and active community member. For 42 years, he has been teaching at Viterbo, specializing in servant leadership. He is also a country tavern owner. I welcome Tom Thibodeau to give his resilient leadership advice, any connection to the Look Up book, and how it had impacted his life.
Well, thank you, Heidi, and I am just in awe of the two women that I share this stage with. Hemingway said that courage is grace under pressure. You have just witnessed courage. When I was 12, I became an adult. When I was 12, my mother was pregnant with my youngest sister. I'm the oldest of 6. Her pregnancy was difficult, and so her bed was brought to our family room, and from her bed, she taught me how to cook and clean and iron and sew. I can't pound a nail, I can't fix nothing, but I can cook, I can clean, I can iron, and I can sew. Those are skills that I have. The tools in our house are owned by my wife. And my mother gave birth to my youngest sister and then went into deep postpartum depression. In fact, she was in a coma for 2 days after she had given birth. My mother was then sent to a psychiatric hospital in Marshfield, Wisconsin. I dropped out of school in the 6th grade, and I cooked, I cleaned, I ironed, I sewed, I did whatever I could to keep our family together. But after a week, my dad knew that a 6th grade boy couldn't care for a family. We had no family in Wisconsin Rapids at that time. There was really not a foster care system, if you would. And so he had asked members of our church if they'd take us in. And so I got sent to a house of a boy who was in 7th grade. All of us went to live with different families during that time, and we all had a different experience as to what took place. I can still remember walking to school and seeing my dad drive by and wave. How painful that must have been, because he had to go to work all day long and then drive to Marshfield and see my mom in a psychiatric hospital. I was living in this house with this boy who was in 7th grade, and he's always getting in trouble with his dad, and I think maybe some alcohol was involved, and his dad would come up and yell at him, and I felt like I was getting yelled at as well. And there I am, living in a strange house, away from my dad, my mom, my brothers and sisters. And one night I'm lying in bed, and I'm scared, and I look up at the moon like it was last night, full, and I begin to pray, "Dear God, please take care of my mom and my dad. Please bring our family together." And at that moment, I felt this amazing warmth, incredible warmth and love. And at age 12, I became a person of prayer. 2 weeks later, I'm with my dad, and we're in the car, and I said, "Who's taking care of Mom?" He says, "Well, psychologists and psychiatrists." I said, "What do you have to do to become a psychologist, psychiatrist?" "Well, you have to get your degree in psychology if a psychologist and get on a master's degree in counseling, or to be a psychiatrist, you have to go to medical school." At age 12, I wanted to become a person of service. I went to college, and I majored in psychology and English, and later got a degree in counseling. My mom came home from the hospital after 12 weeks. And people didn't talk to us about mental illness. And I just want to mention this. My mom was in and out of a psychiatric hospital all while I'm in high school, and nobody never asked a question how I was doing. They didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. And that was just one of those things that I really believe is important. When somebody's going through a difficult time, walk with them. Well, but people had been talking. How could they not? My dad was an attorney in town. He was on the board of directors at Assumption High School. They knew who my dad was. And when my mom came home for the next 6 weeks, we had a casserole that showed up every night. People were talking and realized that this mother with 6 young children could not feed her family, so they were going to feed us. The community fed us. Now it's my turn. After I leave here today, I'll go to the place of grace where I'll hand out groceries humbly and proudly to probably about 60 families who are hungry. And then later tonight, we'll share a meal together, or we'll come around to the table. So my mother suffering has become the basis of my life. Prayer, service, community. Suffering without love is intolerable. Love without suffering is sentimental. Suffering and love are redemptive. My mother suffered and loved me, and I am changed, as you are, by those people who have suffered on your behalf and have loved you. This is what Heidi captures in her stories of resilience. Suffering and love are redemptive.
Thank you, Tom. I believe that we are going to open it to Q&A if time allows. If it does not allow, I will close. I certainly can stay after at
We can take 2 questions, and I'm going to bring the microphone to you so that our audience, our virtual audience, can hear you. Start over here.
Thanks to all three of you. It's been very inspiring to listen to what you have to say. My name is Chuck Hansen. Amy, could you tell me, did you ever find out what was the cause or what drove your daughter to suicide?
Yes. Unfortunately, it was just a lot of friends that weren't real nice one day. And I think the hard part is her telling her boyfriend that she was gonna do it. And then he left. And the point is we need to take people serious and listen. So I appreciate the question. It's important to ask.
Thank you.
Heidi, you talked about congregations a couple times. Several of you have mentioned prayer. Where does spirituality come into this whole story?
I'll take it first and then you guys could add in, but throughout the book, people did mention prayer. People also mentioned meditation. I talk about perspective. They all get the same result. When you pray, you're only thinking about talking to one person. You're not multitasking. So I think spirituality runs through every single chapter in all of our stories here. It just may be vocalized in a different way. It may not be a certain denomination, but the way that people are reframing their mind and pivoting is the same. Would anyone like to answer on a spiritual level?
The brothers of Taizé clearly state, and I believe this to be true, prayer is a school of love. When we pray, we're in contact with God, and we're in contact with each other, and we develop our capacity to love people in ways we not thought were possible.
You said two? So my parting words are the quote up on the board that talks about leading through is not about avoiding the storm, but it's leading with flexibility and courage. But I wanted to add on that, don't forget to have fun and learn to dance in the rain. So for those of you, that's a hybrid of those two famous quotes, and you always have look up in your back pocket. So I implore you to today do that calendar invite and try it out. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, the contributors. Thank you, the Rotary.
I just want to add something that I think is pretty obvious. If you're feeling what I'm feeling, these are powerful messages. And Heidi's message is a very profound one for all of us. The word that she asked me, my word was proud. And I'm proud that we had this opportunity to host you. We just scratched the surface here. They have books. Heidi has her book on the audience in the foyer area. And I would encourage you, learn more, appreciate more, and thank you for being part of today's program. Thank you so much.